Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the CEO of the GSMA, Rob Conway.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2011 Mobile World Congress. The mobile industry is here in full force with more than 50,000 attendees, including a record 130 government delegations from around the world. We have outstanding exhibitions with more than 1,300 companies showcasing cutting-edge mobile technology, services, and solutions, and we're again featuring our at&t developer events in Hall 7. The conference program features our most outstanding lineup ever of keynotes with 20 of the world's leading CEOs here to share their insights on the future of the mobile industry. Let's look at some of the key industry trends that are driving momentum in mobile today and shaping its future. There are now more than 5 billion mobile connections worldwide, and we expect that will hit 6 billion connections by the end of 2011. But what people may not appreciate is that the mobile industry generated more than $750 billion US in annual revenues in 2010 and is forecast to reach $1 trillion US in 2013. It invested more than $120 billion US in CapEx in 2010. The mobile industry has experienced several waves of innovation over the past 2 decades. The first wave of mobile was simply connecting people around the world. Indeed, one of the core strengths of GSM has been its ubiquity, underpinned by interoperability. The second wave of mobile is enabling the world's population to access the internet. In the next 2 years, more people will access the internet via mobile than the desktop PC. Key to this is the growth of mobile broadband, including LTE. So what about the third wave of mobile? It brings all of this together, connecting people and things around the world, across business and personal lives. It's the connected life, and mobile operators are a huge enabling force behind it. A key strength of mobile is the exponentially increasing power of its networks. The network operators are making significant investment in mobile broadband, and particularly LTE, to create the bandwidth to support this connected life. We are currently at 400 million HSPA connections, and we're adding 17 million new connections each month. So we predict that in 2012 we will hit 1 billion mobile broadband connections and 21 million LTE connections. There are 18 commercial LTE networks around the world and 184 planned deployments. With respect to these, there are currently 26 TD LTE trial networks, with 10 expected to go commercial in 2012. These will be interoperable with FD LTE. Operators such as Verizon Wireless, NTT Docomo, and Vodafone Germany have gone live with LTE networks in the last quarter alone, and we expect to see many more in the coming months. In addition to more networks going live and a growing number of connections, we're seeing other positive momentum around LTE. Last week, Verizon Wireless announced it had made the world's first successful voice over LTE call on a commercial LTE network. And this week, Verizon, Alcatel-Lucent, LG, and the GSMA are demoing voice over LTE here at the Mobile World Congress. Of course, at the heart of the connected life is connected things. And operators see an embedded SIM as vital to the growth of machine-to-machine, and for that reason are working to ensure that an embedded SIM will be fit for the M2M purpose. Thus, in November, the GSMA announced the Embedded SIM Initiative, and this week the GSMA published requirements which will enable the creation of a standard for the embedded SIM. Embedded SIMs will dramatically simplify the provisioning of machine-to-machine services. It will mean that SIMs embedded in devices, when once installed, may not be easily removed. They can be provisioned by operators over the air up to and even after the point of sale, and will also allow the re-provisioning of operators during the lifetime of the device, making it much easier to bring mobile broadband to devices from automobiles, e-readers, and to smart meters. The embedded SIM will continue to provide the levels of security associated with traditional SIMs. Now, the amount of innovation in the machine-to-machine area is amazing, and you can see a bit of us here this week in the GMA's Embedded Mobile House, with partners including at&t, Ericsson, IBM, KT, Qualcomm, and Vodafone. It's situated here in the courtyard at the Fiera. The Embedded Mobile House showcases how embedded mobile technologies are already improving people's lives by demonstrating cutting-edge devices and services across industries such as automotive, consumer electronics, healthcare, and utilities. For operators, NFC is a crucial enabler for a whole array of new services that will become indispensable in people's lives. Mobile payment is first among these. We are all familiar with contactless bank and transport cards. These contactless cards have created momentum in the NFC space and are encouraging merchants to put in point-of-sale terminals. In the UK, McDonald's will put contactless readers in all 1,200 of its UK restaurants to speed customers through checkout, and other merchants are clearly following suit. But imagine how attractive it will be for customers to dispense with their pocket full of cards. No cards, no clutter. Instead, mobile becomes their supremely efficient payment mechanism. This is undoubtedly why you see Barclays Bank, Discover Cards, and others participating with operators in using mobile-based NFC. They realize that the next wave of NFC is about mobile, and operators want to be major enablers in this next wave. In fact, mobile NFC opens up whole new possibilities. Customers with a mobile phone will have the advantage of getting e-coupons from merchant terminals. Mobile NFC will enable customers to read smart tags in and outside of stores and get up-to-date information and offers, thereby creating a whole new shopping and information experience. Because mobile can enable more targeted offers to the consumers, it will spur more merchants to have terminals ready to receive payment for those offers. In addition to exchanging information and contact, mobile NFC will spur e-ticketing and enabling secure access to your car, home, and office. But a whole new cottage industry of innovators is developing around mobile NFC, and operators will be well positioned in this developing ecosystem. Thus, operators are involved in a series of mobile NFC launches, along with their partners in the banking, credit card, and other parts of the mobile NFC ecosystem. We know that mobile with NFC can work. Indeed, 60% of mobile users in Japan use NFC at more than 1.4 million shops for services such as transport, payment, coupons, ticketing, among others. And just last week, NTT Docomo and KT announced that they are working together to develop a range of cross-border NFC services, which they will launch in late 2012. And SoftBank, KDDI, and SK Telecom also announced that they are testing mobile NFC payment services that will span Japan and Korea with the aim to launch service this year. In France, Orange, SFR, WE, and NRJ Mobile have had tremendous success with their NFC pilot in Nice. And they plan to expand to 9 additional cities throughout France and are now forecasting sales of 1 million of the City Z handsets in 2011. The next wave of mobile NFC will include at&t Mobility, T-Mobile USA, and Verizon Wireless with ISIS, a national mobile commerce network that aims to fundamentally transform how people shop, pay, and save. In the UK this summer, Everything Everywhere and Barclaycard plan to launch their mobile NFC service, and over 40,000 stores will be ready to accept customers' mobile NFC payments. In the Netherlands, a joint venture of KPN, T-Mobile, and Vodafone with ABN AMRO, ING, and Rabobank are expected to launch mobile NFC in 2012. And a true strength of mobile NFC will be the SIM. This will enable the security, authentication, identification so essential to NFC transactions. It is understandable, therefore, that there is significant momentum around the SIM solution because all in the ecosystem stand to benefit, from consumers to banks, credit card companies to operators, merchants, and others. The next wave in personal communications is RCS, Rich Communication Services. And Rich Communication Suite delivers multimedia communication services from the contact list of the phone and allows consumers to be introduced to new services quickly and easily and connected with friends that have the same capabilities. The world's mobile operators are driving RCS as a standards-based solution that will provide a common set of requirements to handset OEMs. The GSMA is welcoming a new version of Rich Communication Suite that will enable mobile phone customers to use instant messaging, live video sharing, and file transfer across any device on any network operator. Once adopted, Rich Communication Suite E will enable customers to use these enhanced communication services across mobile networks in a more simple and intuitive way. RCS-E is based on a specification put forth by Bharti, Deutsche Telekom, Orange, Orascom Telecom, Telecom Italia, Telefónica, Telenor, and Telenor and Vodafone, and aims to speed up the market introduction and adoption of these services. A selection of mobile operators intend to launch this commercially from late 2011 across several European markets. Launched last year at the Mobile World Congress, the wholesale application community was created by operators and others to unite the fragmented applications marketplace for the benefit of users. Now, with nearly 70 members, WAC delivered on its promise yesterday by announcing that it is officially open for business with 8 operators: China Mobile, MTS, Orange, Smart, Telefónica, Telenor, Verizon, and Vodafone connected to the WAC platform. These operators can now populate their storefronts with the thousands of WAC applications available today. WAC also announced compatible handsets from Huawei, LG, Samsung, Sony Ericsson, and ZTE. So you have heard this morning about how committed operators are to being key enablers at the heart of the connected life. GSMA and Chief Executive at Telecom Italia. He will be joined by a distinguished operator group of chief executives who will give you their views on how operators are leading and enabling the transformation to the next generation of mobile. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, and welcome to everyone. I think that we're grateful to Rob for introducing us to the new waves of innovation in the mobile industry, but also grateful to Rob for anticipating some of the figures of the World Mobile Congress here today that show that after a period of uncertainty, after a period of crisis that we have experienced in some areas, in some countries, and where our industry has done much better than other industries, there is a growing momentum, growing enthusiasm, and the number of attendees shows that there is really the willingness of the industry to fight back and to be back on the move. I have the privilege of introducing the panel today. We have a lineup, a fantastic lineup of speakers. We have the leaders of the mobile industry in the world line up for you here today. We have Vittorio Colau from Vodafone. We have Chairman Wang from China Mobile. We have Daniel Haas from America Movidas. We have Randall Stevenson from at&t and Cesar Alierta from Telefónica. These people serve almost 2 billion customers, and I think they have a very good and strong understanding of what's going on all around the world. I think that the format that we have for the presentation today is quite interesting. We will ask each one of them to give a presentation and to give their view on how they see things, and then we have the opportunity to ask them a few questions on the key points and the key problems that the industry is facing. Now, I think that we will have a very interesting experience this morning. The industry is facing a big transformation with number of challenges. We're facing the growth of data traffic, more than 100% per year in the last few years, and going forward we don't see any deceleration in data traffic. By the way, we see probably an acceleration. The Internet of Things will drive more data traffic. In order to accommodate this data traffic, we need to invest more, so we're facing challenges from our shareholders, from our customers, from all the constituents in this industry. I think we all have the right answers, but certainly that poses us challenges that probably we have not seen in the past. In some areas we are facing the challenges of new competitors coming from outside of the industry. This was an industry that was used at competing very fiercely, but within the same playing turf. Now we have operators, we have competitors coming from outside of our world, using different models for competing, using different opportunities for bringing services to their customers. And I think this creates challenges, but it creates also opportunities. It creates opportunities for serving better customers, for serving customers with more innovation and with more enthusiasm, as we've always done. Now it is my privilege to ask Chairman Wang to come to the podium and present his notes. Thank you very much. Chairman Wang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Over the past year, with the rapid proliferation of smartphones and the emergence of tablets, mobile internet has developed substantially and created a new phenomenon in the mobile communication industry. The most important contribution mobile internet has made is that mobile phones have not only extended the functions of human eyes, ears, and mouths, it has enabled us to see further, hear more, spread our voice afar, but also created many new applications. Mobile phones are no longer just for making phone calls or SMS. They are equipped with many new applications which came about because of the Internet. These applications play a bigger role in changing people's behavior and lifestyle. The total subscriber base of China Mobile reached 590 million, of which 80 million are smartphones. With more than 600,000 base stations covering cities and towns nationwide, when looking at our future development, we will continue to focus on growing new subscribers as we still see huge potential in net additions in the rural market, although penetration in major cities has long surpassed 100%. At the same time, we will pay close attention to development of mobile internet, striving to develop new business opportunities. Facing these new challenges and opportunities, I want to share with you my thoughts on the following three issues. Number one, how to cope with the explosive growth in data traffic brought by mobile internet. As mobile internet develops, more and more users access the internet via mobile phone, tablets, or dongles, which has led to the explosive growth in data traffic. Operators are struggling to cope using their existing cellular systems and are yet to meet such huge demand. As a matter of fact, when data traffic of one smartphone equal to that of 10 feature phones, one dongle equals that of 10 smartphones, operators will not be able to solve the data traffic problems, no matter how hard they try to expand the capacity of their 2G and 3G existing networks. China Mobile, like many other operators in the world, took the following two measures. First of all, extend the Wi-Fi coverage. Wi-Fi has proved to be a very important supplement to the cellular networks. Diverting users to use Wi-Fi in data-intensive areas can effectively alleviate traffic congestion, maintain good user experiences, and relieve the pressure of expanding the cellular networks. Terminals will identify and connect to Wi-Fi as the priority means to access the internet. Today, creating a user-friendly Wi-Fi experiences is more difficult than rolling out hotspots. For Wi-Fi to become the priority internet access in data-intensive area, we urge all handset manufacturers to provide embedded Wi-Fi connectivity and make it a default function so that we can maximize the scale of Wi-Fi function on handsets in the shortest time. Besides, another problem is that for some existing hotspots, the operator's Wi-Fi authentication process is inconvenient, causing some customers not able to use Wi-Fi but have to use the cellular network. Easy Wi-Fi authentication is therefore essential. In addition, China Mobile, KT Korea, and at&t Docomo Japan are in discussion regarding international Wi-Fi roaming. Secondly, kick off
Tian Shan Mountains in the remote region of Xinjiang in China. I thought that was finally out of reach and I could finally rest. And the coverage of my smartphone was perfect. Also on top of the mountains, thanks to China Mobile. So I had to keep working also in the most remote region in the world. So thanks to the coverage of China Mobile. Well, I think that Chairman Wang introduced one of the themes that we will be considering later in the discussion, a very important theme, and I think we will be hearing about this from other speakers as well. That is, Chairman Wang very strongly stated that the mobile industry advocates open system. Of course, our networks are open and have been open always and will be open always. So the industry is advocating an open ecosystem that allows the interoperability of applications, of operating systems, and everything that serves the need of the customers. Now we have the next speaker, who is Vittorio Colau. Vittorio Colau, the CEO of Vodafone. Please welcome Vittorio.
Good morning. It's great to be here again 1 year later. I remember last year we were talking about the economic crisis and we didn't know whether we had seen the bottom. We were talking about data and we were not 100% sure about the profitability of it. And of course we were talking a lot about the role of the over-the-top players versus the mobile operators. Now 1 year later, I think our industry, as we have heard, has regained confidence. there is a mild sense of optimism. Of course, we are seeing growth. We are seeing growth again in emerging markets. We are seeing growth again in the US. We are seeing some growth in some parts of Europe, not everywhere. And I think we also see a little bit more competition across all the elements of the value chain, of the internet value chain, which I think is very important. So what I would like to cover today is basically three things. First of all, a small focus on mobile data and why I continue to declare myself a digital optimist. A few remarks on regulation, and then share the Vodafone priorities with all of you. First of all, mobile data. The clear good news of 2010 is the increased penetration of smartphones, 44 up versus the previous year. At Vodafone we have half of our smartphones, of our sales actually coming from smartphones today in Europe. And I have to say this explosion in data has not come with an explosion of our network, which is good news. So 100% data growth, 80%, 90%, as Franco was saying. But at Vodafone we have kept our average utilization stable, 35%, and the peak, the number of sites at peak usage stable at 7%. Thanks to investment, thanks to network management techniques that Chairman Wang has also illustrated. And this is clearly good news because this means that our infrastructures, the infrastructures of the mobile providers, are capable of supporting the great growth ahead of us. Good news on the devices front. We have more choice now than in the past. There are more devices, more affordable devices, and most important, new devices like the tablets, which are fantastic for media and entertainment. Now, it's amazing, if you look around Barcelona, I mean, when were the tablets really, the first really good tablets out? It was about 1 year ago, more or less. And how many in this room today are taking notes on an iPad, and how many are working basically with tablets? Now, tablets, the good thing is that tablets are not a replacement. It just takes to go to an airport when you go in front of a security check and you see people taking out their tablet and then taking out their laptop and then putting also the smartphone in the basket, which is good because this gives the clear, which is very good, actually it takes a little bit longer to check in and to board, but that's a side effect that as Chief Executive of Vodafone I cannot complain about. But you know, it's very good news because this means that data is self-feeding, and the better the devices become, the more choice we have, the better network we have, the more people will use. Now, other things also have happened. One important thing which we drove, quite frankly, at Vodafone, was the move to tiered data pricing. Tiered data pricing is good because it gives customers choice and control, but it's also good because it gives the operators the opportunity to monetize on the high usage customers without having to subsidize high usage customers with low usage customers, and gives the opportunity to upsell, like we are doing today in the UK or in Germany, and we'll be doing everywhere in Europe, to upsell when all these nice devices create more demand. These are all mature market phenomena. If you look at emerging markets, we have fantastic growth in emerging markets, Turkey, India, South Africa, 40, 30, 50% of revenue growth. And this is possible because, depending on the market, we have good devices, good browsers, the Opera Mini browsers. We now have 2.5 million Opera Mini browsers active in these markets. And this is clearly a great enabler of data in environments where the only platform for accessing the internet is mobile. We have new devices, we have launched successful devices which are bringing, again, more opportunities to use devices in situations where before it was not possible. I'm thinking about the MiFi devices, so now every car is de facto a Wi-Fi environment. I'm thinking about femtocells or picocells or Wi-Fi mixed hybrid devices. Thinking about things that we launched in some of our markets, hybrid satellite or digital terrestrial television and wireless set-top boxes which can give new functionalities and new usage cases in the hands of our customers. Everything is basically developed in a nice and smooth way last year. Not to talk about machine-to-machine, it was already covered by Chairman Wang, so I will not go into a lot of details. We provide machine-to-machine solutions for fleet management, for asset management, for security management companies. TomTom uses our solution in 34 markets, seamless, non-geographically defined solutions. Car companies are actively looking into this. This is, I think, the first time where we start seeing large-scale deployments of this type of solutions. We have some private customers who are using machine-to-machine solutions for managing their own energy consumption, be global vector, through smart metering so that they can optimize the load. And smart grids and the management of energy and the saving, quite frankly, also of energy is the next thing. So I really have to say, 1 year later, the future is much better. If you think about one aspect that I think historically we got wrong, people, consumers are willing to pay for their content, their services. We all got it wrong because initially I think music, due to piracy, gave the impression that basically only free things were available and only free things would have been used. News, media, everything was given for free in the internet, and the perception was nobody would ever pay. Now, this is the year where, I don't know what the number is, 5 billion apps have been downloaded, 5 billion apps have been downloaded, between 1 and 2 billion in revenues. Finally, newspapers are being sold over digital networks. Music is being paid, videos are being paid. So the monetization, thanks to this fantastic ecosystem that together, all of us, we have created, thanks to this, finally, content has again a monetization opportunity for those who are there. So I think it has been a good year, a year of good, more data in mature markets, but also in emerging markets, the year where new devices have come and media and entertainment have really got fantastic momentum, and quite frankly also, as I said, a year of more choice. So my digital optimism is based, of course, on my vision and our vision for the future, but also on good developments of the last year. Before moving to the priorities, let me say 2 words about regulation. Now here I want to make 2 sets of remarks. One is overall regulation and the other one is local regulation. I would say that you might remember last year I made comments about the need for, I read, interconnectivity, competition, and entrepreneurialism in the internet value chain. Some people interpreted this as an anti-Google search comment. It was not, and I have to say 1 year later, we are glad for what Google have achieved with Android. It's good because there is more competition. The reality is that my comment was about competition and openness. And I have to say, regulators, at least in Europe, seem to be realizing that it's important to take steps to really have openness, free dealing, and competition in the internet value chain, the so-called discussion of net neutrality, which, again, last year I said it should not be network neutrality, but internet neutrality. The approach to net neutrality, which has been taken in Europe, I think is healthy, because, again, it recognizes the free dealing and the competitive requirement at every step of the value chain, and perhaps there is something that the US regulators can learn from Europe. We welcome also the attention that has been put on avoiding dominance, again, a concept that also Chairman Wang has covered. In any step of the value chain, there's an analysis of Google search in these days. Again, as long as it's quick, as long as we get to a clear answer, again, it's good that in Europe we are taking this approach. And recently, and please, as much as last year, I didn't make an anti-Google comment, I don't want to make an anti-Apple comment. Now there is some attention on in-app billing. Again, openness is important. Chairman Wang has, again, stressed how important it is that there is openness and interoperability. it's a bit ironic that we have to raise this point when a few years ago here in Barcelona the operators were criticized and were accused of being a walled garden. Now we are giving billing to newspapers, we're giving billing to books, we're giving billing to everybody, and we are here making the case for openness. I would say the scenario at international level, at least for what Europe is concerned, is good because we are trying to avoid vertically integrated, closed, dominant systems. Scenario is a little bit still to be worked at the local level. There are, I would call it, misguided attempts to tax our sector in some markets or to use spectrum fees as a way to extract value. I think it's not particularly forward-looking because we are taxing or we are trying to extract money from one of the few engines for growth that we have, especially in Europe. There are spectrum policies that in some emerging markets, I'm thinking of India here, are a bit erratic. There are, again, requests to re-tax frequencies that have been given a while ago. This is a bit like giving me a piece of land, saying you can build your house there, and then once you have built the house, come back and say, you know what, I want you to pay what somebody has paid for another piece of land 3 years later. This is not, quite frankly, investor friendly, and this is not what is needed, again, to have a healthy, investment-led industry. Local regulations, mobile termination rate cuts. Here I have to say, my impression is that in Europe we are still working with what I would call an autopilot regulation system. There were regulations that were set when prices were high, when mobile termination rates were high, and mechanisms have been established which now continue to work regardless of the environment. Every year we at Vodafone start the year with between 150 and 250 million pounds less money in interconnection, and probably the same, if not a higher amount, on lower prices. So every year the budget starts with less resources than the previous year. And on the other hand, we have regulators who go on autopilot mechanisms and by default they continue to apply things which were maybe valid 5, 6, 10 years ago. I think it's time to move to industrial policies and to forward-looking policies. In general, I will not cover the fixed broadband part. Again, competition is good. The more competition, the better competition, the more investment-oriented environment we create, the better it is. So on the regulatory front, I would say mixed, good views, good positions at international level. Still some work that I ask local governments and local regulators to do to really adjust to the current times, which are times of opportunity, which are times of investment, which are times where we have to build for the future. Now, what are Vodafone priorities quickly for 2011? I would say clearly 3 things. Networks, speed, customer experience, and improving the societies around us. On network and investment, again, we believe, we call this the years of super mobile. We believe that the network is a competitive advantage, and we believe that the network is essential for the future. We invest heavily in HSPA, we invest in LTE. Last week I wanted personally to try high definition video on LTE with 20 concurrent users, so the computers you see behind me are colleagues who were doing things, because I wanted to see with my eyes exactly what happens when you have a lot of people using in the same place a lot of data, and I have to say the experience was incredibly good in Germany. And again, we're going to invest more. I support Chairman Swan's position. Maybe LTE is in some markets MTE or maybe STE, depending on the condition. But clearly this is going to be important for us, and thanks to all the partners we have in this room for the great work that we're doing to roll out in incredibly short time frames LTE in Germany. Customer experience, devices are very important. We want to have all devices. Last year here I presented the Vodafone 150 and 250, which were the most affordable phones in the world. This year we present 2 other models, 351 and 455, which have Opera Mini browsers, 7 times faster than native browsers. and 90% compression. This is again to bring data to markets or to segments which cannot afford the very high end. We introduced WebOps yesterday, a $100 keyboard. It looks like a keyboard, it's not a keyboard, it's a connectivity device that you can put into a television, and every television in India, every television in Africa can become an internet access point with a wireless connection. And of course, tablets and mixed entertainment devices, which are very important with our billing capabilities for monetizing data and apps. And again, all newspapers in the world, books, go spoken in the UK. In my notes, I don't know why somebody has put digital flirting, flirt-o-matic in Germany. Not sure why you need billing for flirting, but probably it's not better to ask. So, this is the most important part of our strategy and our priorities for this year. We clearly, and I want to cover also what Rob Conway has introduced, we need to have better collaboration at the industry level. We compete hard every day, and we will always need to compete hard, but we need to think about customer experience and new services. Interoperability, portability, and competition are three interconnected principles. First of the four initiatives for this year at Vodafone is clearly the full adoption of RCS-E, which enables interoperability of new services. It was announced yesterday, there's a schedule, it's on track. Again, this will improve greatly across all phones the experience of multimedia. The second is the mobile wallet and the SIM-based solution for payments. Again, security and customer protection is very important, but also it's very important to follow the fantastic examples of Japan, France, the Netherlands, where experimentation and new services have actually been incredibly successful. We are working in Germany as Vodafone and in Spain with the national railways. We are working in the Netherlands and in Turkey with banks. Cooperation with partners in this area is very important. One topic that has not been touched is mobile advertising. Here again, we can, and I think we should as an industry, define common KPIs, define common formats, and make, again, secure private data or protected data available to partners for better, more targeted, and more effective advertising. This is an area where, again, we need to cooperate with many partners in the industry. This is the year where we want to make this happen. And finally, the wholesale application community is adopted now, also by many other companies on top of the founding partners, as a functioning application ecosystem open across operating systems. This is very developer friendly. Again, this is another important initiative that would push the data wave. So the competition and cooperation are very important. Competition on the network, on the device, on the experience side, and cooperation on creating a better environment and a more economic environment for all of those who have content, application, and services. Third aspect that I wanted to talk before closing is the contribution to our society. We all, this is something that is very close to my heart. We all, of course, run businesses and we all, of course, make money out of this business. But our business has the amazing capability of really improving societies around us. And what we are doing, I think, is remarkable. There was an interesting article from Michael Porter, the Harvard Business School professor, in the last issue of Harvard Business Review, talking about the new capitalistic model and how to create social value. And I was very happy to read that one of the first examples mentioned was Safaricom's M-Pesa, the payment, the money transfer system in Kenya, which is actually not just a good activity for us, but it's also enabling a lot of economic improvement in the societies where we operate. We now have that system in 6 markets, 20 million people, 40,000 jobs created thanks to it, rolling it out in many more environments, with many businesses now using it as a payment method for their own services. We do a variety of other interesting things. In South Africa, we have mobile health solutions where patients' records can be recorded and sent from the nurses to the doctors, and time is saved and more patients can be treated, and there is an economic incentive, a small economic incentive in top-ups for the health workers that use this system. So again, another way of using our system to improve the cost and, quite frankly, the health conditions of a population. In Turkey, we have 1 million people subscribing to a service which not only gives agricultural price information, which is something we all mentioned in our speeches, but also gives information on how to improve our agricultural techniques so that the yield and the profitability for the customers who use these services can be improved. We have a partnership with Novartis, IBM, and the Rollback Malaria Partnership to use our infrastructure to manage anti-malaria medicines, similar to what we did with HIV, and make sure that there is always the right stock in the right place and the right people get the appropriate treatment. Again, all of these things are great things that improve the societies around us. One final interesting thing you can see outside here, outside our pavilion, together with Huawei, the Vodafone Foundation has developed a solution for Telecom Sans Frontières, which can be deployed in case of emergencies or whatever, earthquakes or disasters. It's a portable network, so the amazing technical capabilities of Huawei and our contribution, you have a full network in 3 trolleys. I mean, these are big trolleys, you cannot put them probably in an overhead bin, but it's literally 3 bags with wheels that you can bring in an area of disaster, and you can turn up in 40 minutes. So in 40 minutes you have a full network, independent from any existing infrastructure, that can be deployed there. So why am I mentioning all of these things? Well, of course, because I'm proud of them, and I think Vodafone is working well in this area, because I think that our industry should be proud of, and a bit prouder of what we do for the societies around us. And as much as we are creating a fantastic business ecosystem, I think we are really, according to the Michael Porter's article, we are really increasing social value where we work, and we really have to be proud and be very happy with the results that we are achieving. So to sum up my remarks, we see economic recovery. We can be more upbeat than last year. We need to move regulation from autopilot to more industrial policy type of vision, forward-looking. Rely on the role of operators who really are defending open access and really are working to give to consumers all the choices and all the portability of their experiences that they require, and cooperate on things like RCS, WAC, payments, advertising, to create the conditions for other companies, for developers, for partners, to really enjoy part of the economic benefit of what we do. And finally, continue to support government and NGOs, because we have a great potential in our technology that can really improve the societies around us. Competition, openness, cooperation, these are the 3 key words for my digital optimism. Thank you.
And I have the honor and pleasure of inviting to the stage Cesar Alierta, good friend of mine and a great leader of Telefónica. Cesar, please welcome Cesar Alierta.
Well, first, I want to wish you the best here in this fantastic town called Barcelona, and we are very happy that this Congress is being held in Barcelona. I want to thank GSM clearly for holding the Congress in this fantastic town, which is Barcelona. You know. I think I share with all my colleagues that the digital world has great opportunities and great challenges ahead of us, and that it's going to be a fantastic world. I really think that the economy in the world is recovering all over, and I think that when we look at the numbers and the projections from now to 2004, I mean there is growth numbers that range from 2% in Europe to 8% in developing Asia and more than 4% in Latin America. And clearly these growth numbers are going to create great opportunities for the ICT industry in all the regions, and I want to underrate here the growth rates of Latin America and Middle and Asia Pacific, which are going to be clearly above 6%. We are all very, very positive about the future of the ICT industry, and we are seeing there are many, many opportunities for the telecom players. It is clear that the assets are going to be growing, the standard devices are booming, and there is a huge demand for new applications and services in the people, the way to spend their lives. Clearly, the telecom industry is going to be driven by the fixed and mobile and broadband. The total number of accesses are expected to grow around 6.6 from here to 2010 and 2012, sorry. And the big growth is going to be mobile assets, which are going to contribute 84% of that growth. The mobile broadband is going to grow very, very strongly, with a rate around 31%. And also fixed broadband is going to grow strongly, around 11%. And I don't want here to pass over one thing which is very important, the necessity of fixed broadband to sustain the growth of mobile broadband, but I will talk about that later. Clearly, all of us, we are connecting people, we are connecting homes, we are connecting business, and we are connecting machines. And this is clearly the basis for a clear growth for the ICT industry. It is clear, as my colleague has pointed out, that the proliferation of new internet devices, more powerful, more affordable, and easy to use, are going to be a very important factor. And we have to recognize that all of us here, we have created a very connected world, which is increasing and making a much better life for all our consumers. The improvement of the mobile broadband coverage and the capacity, together with the growing availability of online services, are the basis for the very strong growth in the smartphone that we're going to see both in developed and emerging markets. And the smartphones are becoming clearly the tools in which consumers manage their daily digital life. And this is clearly contributing to create value for us, increasing the customer average lifetime, and also our wishes are pushing clearly the ARPU of our clients. The scope of our market in the last year has increased tremendously, but which is very important, which is the digitalization of the real economy. All the sectors of the economy are being affected by the digital, and we see finance as healthcare, retail, government, education, entertainment. In every aspect of the life, there is going to be applications and services that make a much better life. And it is clear also to all of us, at least here in Telefónica, that the percentage of the wallet of our consumers will increase significantly in the future. And in this new digital world, the telco operators, as service platform providers, we are playing the key role of the ICT industry. Advanced platforms are essential and necessary for the quality of service delivery and for assessing the new revenue streams and business model with third parties. In telecom operators, we can clearly add a wide range of services around connectivity and service management. And we can assess not only the strengths of the big third parties, but also of the thousands of small companies and developers. The millions of customers we have in consumers, business, and administrations are going to enjoy through us a very much better comprehensive offer of services. So we all agree that there is tremendous opportunities ahead. But I want to point to some of the challenges the industry needs to be able to materialize these aspirations. We always talk about the virtuous circle of growth of industry, where customer demand is growing and there is proliferation of advanced services and applications. And this demand will keep on growing, and it will be developing every time more and more the broadband network. And we all know that the further development of the broadband network is key to make the digital life be a fact. We have seen that last year tremendous growth in traffic, and we know that this number we have seen the past year are going to be very small when we compare with the explosion that we're going to see on the coming years. And we all know that one of the reasons for this explosion in traffic is going to be video demand. And so far, till now, efficiency improvements and technology evolutions have made possible capacity and speed upgrades. And looking forward, I can say that we all see that network technologies will not be a barrier for the digitalization. The important question here is who is going to invest? In order to attain the expected growth of mobile traffic, it will be necessary to raise by more than 10 times the current mobile nodes capacity and multiply by more than 10 times the number of mobile nodes. And I want to highlight that mobile data traffic growth also demands fixed networks improvements because new wireless access technology and network architecture requires bigger fixed networks capabilities and sites more near to the customer. We have to bear clear in mind that every mobile base station will have to be connected by fiber fixed network. It will be necessary to increase the point of presence in buildings in order to raise mobile coverage. Mobile devices will also use technology usually characterized as fixed ones as Wi-Fi. And also it will be necessary to strengthen the capacity of submarine cables and satellites. Higher traffic demand is requiring improvements of development in both fixed and mobile networks that can only be achieved through very heavy investments. A.T. Kearney has made estimation for the European telco CAPEX sector that will reach 26 billion euros for fixed internet network and 65 billion euros for mobile network to peak the current levels of investments. But with that investment, we cannot meet the forecasted traffic growth. According to A.T. Kearney, as you can see in the slide, fixed and mobile additional CAPEX required to fund the incremental capacity needed in Europe from 2010 to 2014 will reach around 10 billion euros to fund the increased capacity required in the core and backhaul of fixed networks. 160 billion euros will be required if fiber in the access is deployed to reach 50% of the households coverage by 2014, according to the strategic plan of the European Union to have 100% coverage by 2020. And we will need 21 billion euros to upgrade mobile network with increased capacity required. Up to now, as you can see in the slide, telecom operators have been by far the main contributors to the investment and employment in the ICT industry. Let me illustrate the idea that only in Europe we employ over 2 million people, in Latin America at least nearly 700,000, more close to 1 billion people. And the similar analysis can be made of the CAPEX figures. And what is clear is that content and service providers hardly contribute to the network costs. For me, it is clear that regulation should allow the recovery of network costs, promoting investment, traffic efficiency, and fostering new services and development. What is very important also is to point here that the telco sector is the only one which is regulated. In a complex but shared internet ecosystem, broad regulatory asymmetries are slowing down the logical investment flow. So let me share with you the conclusions. We all have seen that our industry has very positive growth prospects driven by more data. But we need new business models to finance the network investments that will make possible the exponential traffic growth and will make this sustainable the whole internet ecosystem. Cooperation is needed clearly between in this industry is essential to get the most of the digital world. A new engagement between telecom operators with content providers is needed to be able to deliver the content with the quality requirement. And regulation clearly should allow the recovery of network costs, promoting investments, traffic efficiency, and fostering this new digital world. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator, for sharing with us these candid remarks on the problems that we're facing and the new regulatory environment that is needed for fostering the growth of data traffic and for having the convergent effort of new investments sustained by that will have to be sustained by our companies in the future. Now, it is my great pleasure to invite Randall Stevenson to come on stage. Randall.
Thank you, Franco. It's been a good conference, very impressive setup, and it's been a pleasure being here in Barcelona. When I looked at the lineup that I would be following this morning in this presentation, I was actually rather fearful that anything I might say would have probably already been said by this distinguished group of people, and it turns out that those fears were actually very well founded. The benefit to you is that I ought to make this go rather quick, because a lot of this is probably repetitive. I will be brief. What I want to talk about very briefly is just give you my perspective from the standpoint of a U.S. operator on a lot of what you heard here this morning. And I continue, like Vittorio said, to be amazed at where we've come in such a short period of time as it relates to mobile internet and mobile broadband. And it has been a very, very rapid pace of change in terms of mobile broadband. It's been driven largely by the smartphone phenomenon that we've all experienced. It's probably happened as fast as any transformation I have seen in this industry in my 28 years. But as you heard the panel discuss, we're really on the cusp of taking all of this to a different level. And it's on the cusp of going to a different level by virtue of seeing these 4G speeds come online, whether it be HSPA+, LTE. We'll be deploying LTE mid-year of this year in the United States. And not only are we deploying LTE, but we're deploying it on some of the richest spectrum that's ever come online, 700 megahertz spectrum, which the service experience, when you combine these two, is really something that's going to be quite unique. And so I would challenge us just to pause and consider for a moment what you've heard here this morning, that we're going to have not hundreds of millions, but we're going to have billions of endpoints hanging off of these 4G networks in this really prime spectrum. And it's not just smartphones, it's tablets, it's gaming devices, it's video viewing devices, automobile capabilities hanging off of these. And when you put this together, I hope you're like me and you sit here and you think there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of potential in this industry for growth. And I think what you hear us all talking about here and wrestling with is what do we do to accelerate the pace of bringing this innovation, this capability to market. And if you'll just consider the pace at which mobile broadband has come to fore, we've talked about mobile broadband and its potential for 3 and 4 year period of time. And it does seem to me like overnight we wake up and mobile broadband is as pervasive and as ubiquitous as air in most of the countries that you've heard described up here this morning. I mean, it's virtually overnight, it's just become an integral part not only of society and how we communicate, but of business. And I think you're seeing the same thing happen as it relates to what we've talked about a long time now, and that's cloud and cloud infrastructure and cloud capabilities. The cloud has, for the last 2 or 3 years, been this somewhat nebulous and emerging capability. But what was once nebulous is today now a very concrete capability. The infrastructure surrounding cloud is coming online. It's coming online at a very quick pace. And I believe that the cloud is going to prove to be a linchpin, a very vital element of all this ecosystem that you've heard us all be discussing here today. And in fact, to tell you the relevance of this, we commissioned a study at at&t over the last year. And the purpose of this study was to look at how people are consuming content, very specifically in the U.S. And what we found was really interesting. And that is, about half of the people are consuming content, the same content, on 3 or more different devices. So think about somebody accessing Facebook or somebody accessing video of some type or gaming. They're accessing that content on 3 or more different devices, whether it be a PC, whether it be a tablet, whether it be a smartphone. And I think this is telling us, what you've heard a lot of the panelists discuss this morning, that our customers will not be limited by device, and they're not going to be limited by OS in terms of how they access their content. And not only that, and Chairman Wong said it best, they don't seem to be too concerned or be too preoccupied with over what access medium they're accessing this content, whether it's a wireless network, a fixed line network, or a Wi-Fi network. And I think there's a very powerful message for all of us in this, and that is, as these 4G networks become deployed, they become pervasive. As the cloud experience expands and the technology and the infrastructure matures, the customer's expectation for an open and seamless environment, you've heard that term a lot today, is only going to increase. And I believe that as an industry, the more that we facilitate is going to drive the flourishing of the mobile broadband infrastructure. And so just like network interoperability unleashed this amazing global growth in texting, I think when you combine mobile broadband with cloud computing capabilities, it's going to drive the next wave of growth in mobile internet and mobile broadband. And we're seeing this, and you're beginning to see a manifestation of this in a very large way in a couple of very distinct areas. I think the poster child for what we're talking about here is Kindle. You remember Amazon? They started out by selling ebooks over their own device. They had a device they put into the marketplace, the Kindle. And I believe that it will prove to be one of the gutsiest and maybe one of the most savvy business moves made over the last decade is as the iPad came out, we all know what Amazon did. They made a hard pivot, and they made the Kindle an app. It was basically an application, and you've seen the result, right? You can go out and you can buy a book. You pay for it once, and you can read that book on your iPad. You can pick it up on your Kindle later and be synced up to exactly where you were. You can read it on your smartphone, whether it be an Apple or an Android-based smartphone. The point being, the customer's experience is an OS agnostic experience. It's a device agnostic experience. It's even a network agnostic experience. It's perfectly seamless. It's perfectly open. And I think it's a perfect example of how this cloud computing and mobile internet are going to combine to create a very powerful force for a customer experience. It's really going to be unique over time. We're seeing a similar thing play itself out in digital media, newspapers and magazines. I think the Wall Street Journal would be the poster child here. Pay for it once, and you're agnostic over what device or over what medium you're accessing it, whether it be an iPad or an iPhone, a smartphone, an Android-based platform. And so publications that are embracing this are the ones that we see continuing to flourish in this environment. Music. I mean, music has done a very nice job in this environment. iTunes has really set the pace for music. You pay for it once, then you commit once again. You access music over multiple devices. Apple, again, being the classic case. Now that happens to be an OS and a device-dependent environment. I think we're going to see models flourish where the music becomes less dependent on a specific OS or device, but it is headed down that path. And so I guess what I'd challenge us to think about now is video entertainment. And we know that our customers crave video. That is one application that our customers prove over and over again they want more and more of. We know how our customers feel about mobility. In fact, right now, more than half of all U.S. tablet and laptop users are streaming video content across wireless networks today. But this buy it once and access it everywhere model for video is really proving to be slow to emerge. And I think it's proving to be slow to emerge in virtually all markets. And we saw what happens in the music industry, that the players in the industry are slow to develop the business model. The customer will develop the model around us. And so we as in the ecosystem have to really come to grips with this. And I think you're also seeing this play itself out in the world of applications. You purchase an app for one operating system, and if you want it on another device or another platform, what do you have to do? You have to buy it again. If you want it on the third device or platform, you have to buy it again. And again, that's not how our customers expect to experience this environment, this world. And so kind of the punchline to this is there's a tidal wave coming. And I think it's a rather significant tidal wave. It's a tidal wave that's being carried by these 4G networks and by cloud computing opportunities. And we as an industry can try to control this tide or fight this tide But these customers are going to do what they want. They're going to access content the way they want in this ecosystem. And so I think our objective is to create a seamless and open environment to make this possible. If you look around, we are beginning to see the emergence of some things that are going to facilitate this. Probably the most exciting in our industry is HTML5. The beauty of HTML5 is it's going to allow apps to be developed at one time, and those apps to be able to be put onto multiple platforms, multiple OSs, multiple devices, multiple app stores. WAC. We had an announcement yesterday on the WAC. Again, that's what this is all about, is trying to simplify this from the customer's experience as well as from the application developer's experience. Develop at one time and use it across multiple platforms. And so what I would tell you is at AT&T, we're committed not only to creating the world's most advanced networks, that's our objective. We also want it to be the most open to innovation. We want it to be highly, highly available. We want it to be easily addressable. And so that's why we're investing very aggressively in the cloud to go along with mobile broadband capabilities, because I do believe the cloud is going to be the catalyst for a lot of what we're seeing. And I think all the carriers and all the network operators that you've heard are pursuing this same path. And so with that, when you think about where this is going, you've heard the cumulative discussion about where everybody is headed. It's very consistent, I believe, across all geographies, all countries, and all the operators. And Vittorio touched on this, but there are some rather significant public policy initiatives that have to be pursued if we want this world to be a reality. And you hear everybody talking about video and how video is coming online in these mobile broadband networks. That means capacity is going to be everything as we move forward. And capacity in wireless means spectrum. And so public policy makers are going to have to be very assertive in trying to make sure we identify the highest and best use for spectrum out of the marketplace. And we have to be aggressive about getting this into the right hands. The spectrum policies have to be harmonized across all these geographies. We can't have spectrum policies in one geography that is not harmonized with another. And again, you have problem interoperability, limiting growth. And I think when you consider the amount of investment, and Cesar talked about this, the amount of investment is dramatic to bring these capabilities to market. It's not only a large investment, but it's multi-year investments. These are 5-10-year time horizon investments. And the implication of that from a public policy standpoint is, as business people, we don't want certainty, but we need predictability. And a light regulatory touch, a predictable regulatory environment is what is critical if you want to continue to drive investment into these opportunities and into these businesses. So again, spectrum, predictable, light touch regulatory environment, I think is really going to be critical for driving this, and then openness across the entire ecosystem. And that's really what we at AT&T are pursuing, and I think it's consistent with what you've heard. And Franco, thank you very much for having us, and I'll turn it back to you now.
Thank you, Reno. During the presentations we have mentioned, or all the speakers have mentioned about the risks that we are facing, over-the-top players invading our turf, customers not willing to accept the fact that applications are not interoperable, companies trying to build new walled gardens that customers don't want. I think that it's a very complicated ecosystem that has been created by mobile data growth. How do you think we can evolve to a point where there is a win-win solution for the challenges that we are facing?
Honestly, I see more the opportunity than the risk. Yes, there is fragmentation, and yes, there is not a cohesive vision, but I think that now the stars are aligned. We have, as I said, and as you kindly pointed out, Randall has touched, people are now paying for content for applications, so there is, if you want, a market, and it's a huge market, in mature and emerging markets that we have in front of us. We have, as operators, I think, great assets and great capabilities, networks, billing, CRM, segmentation, access. By the way, we respect all the regulations, the privacy regulations, the security requirements in all jurisdictions where we work. And there are great user experiences. You know, you mentioned the Kindle. We can, of course, talk about Apple and you know, all the operating systems, and all the device manufacturers are doing great stuff, set-top boxes. I mean, the user cases are multiplying. Now, I think that now the stars are aligned. There is a market, there are good assets, there are good user experiences to think in a win-win case. And again, I have to go back to points that we all raised. Openness, competition between us, but cooperation on creating a shared platform from an economic point of view is very important. And that's why, for example, we opened our billing to third parties. That's why I think that we need to be willing to work to grow the pie, as opposed to just like 3-4 years ago when the pie was very small, try to see who could got the slice. Grow the pie is more important than the slice of the pie in these days.
Thank you, Vittorio. Randall, you've given us a solution to the problems that we're seeing. I mean, you are saying we have the potential to solve the problems for our customers, to eliminate the walled gardens, to have interoperability among all the devices and all the operating systems and all the applications. And this will come from cloud computing and the LTE deployment. There's one point perhaps that you should mention that has been missing in your presentation, but I think that you could elaborate on this. I talked about spectrum harmonization. I mean, one of the problems that you have in using seamlessly all these applications is the fact that when you travel around the world, you may have problems with spectrum harmonization. What do you have to say about this?
I think this is going to be a big challenge for all of us. And so we are building LTE capability in the U.S. on particular bands of 700 megahertz spectrum. Where will you be building that in Europe? You know, and I don't know that it's been actually discerned yet. And where we'll be building that in Asia. And so we're going to have a situation where you're going to have handsets or tablets or devices that are not going to be interoperable, you know, across geographies. And you've heard everybody talk about this today, interoperability. And to Vittorio's point, if we as an industry and an ecosystem, if our objective is to grow the pie, interoperability is critical. You've never seen the whole pie grow when you don't have good, seamless interoperability. And spectrum is going to play a huge role in this, especially as you move to 4G and LTE networks. And so I think we, the operators, I think the ecosystem providers, but most importantly, the regulators are going to have to be mindful of this if we want to create this true interoperability across continents, literally, and across countries specifically.
Daniel, you presented the big impact that 3G has in Latin America in terms of eliminating poverty, creating new opportunities for everybody. What do you think that the 4G will do for the Latin American economies and the Latin American operators?
Well, I think the economies needs to be connected. All the rural areas, all the small towns need to be connected and connected with data. So I think if you put LTE, if you put HSDPA, 3G to all these towns, the economies are going to grow. The efficiencies in the economies, healthcare, there's a lot of different services that you could do. In America Mobile, we're investing in the next 3 years more than $20 billion to try to connect all these towns in Latin America to give them that connectivity that they need.
Thank you, Daniel. Chairman Wang, there is a problem with standards, there is a problem with the way in which LTE is developed by the infrastructure providers, by the manufacturers of devices. What do you think will happen in order to have different standards to converge in the LTE world?
Yes, I think the convergence of the systems are very, very important. You know, both for the operators and our customers had the dream that one customer can use one handset to have application everywhere, no matter what system it's used. But in 1G, 2G, and 3G, we didn't realize that. But I think when we talk about 4G, we hope we can have a unified, converged system. That means the device can compatible. I mean the TDD-LTE and FDD-LTE. But they have only difference is the use of spectrum. If an operator has the paired spectrum, it can use FDD-LTE. And if an operator has only unpaired spectrum, it can use the technology of TDD-LTE. But that is just the network technology. For our customers, they can use the same device in any networks. So I'm very happy, it becomes true. It's very possible. Yesterday, we had a TD-LTE initiative event, and some vendors already present a dongle. It can be used for FDD-LTE, and also it can be used for TD-LTE. So I think it would be very possible to realize that.
Thank you, Chairman. Cesar, what is Telefónica doing to capture the opportunities of the new digital world?
Well, we think everything is going to be digital, and we think, we are doing what we call the verticals, visions, and security, health, learning, machine-to-machine, cloud. I think one thing which is very important is that with the telcos we are going to provide the digital world. Digital is not only going to be search and social networking. It's going to be much more. Everything is going to be digital, and we need the platforms, and we are putting the platforms and the services to be able to cover what we think in Telefónica is going to be. Everything is going to be digital in every aspect.
There is a question that I want to ask to all of you, and I want to ask you to be very frank on this. Do you think that the regulators and the politicians should do something urgently to help the growth, the development of mobile data in the world? Vittorio.
I think Randall touched it, and I touched it in my remarks. I think we should go away from this autopilot, regulation, rules, mechanisms, people, processes, and get a little bit more industrial vision for the future, which really is about frequencies and investments, starting from the longer term elements, which are the capital assets elements, and then working back on implications, as opposed to just say, this is the privacy regulation, this is the security requirement, this is the whatever, mobile termination rates or net neutrality thing, which are all disconnected elements and run the risk of creating a non-consistent investment environment, Cesar touched it in his speech. So it's a bit kind of thinking long-term and working back, as opposed to having these separate elements of telecom-specific thinking, which were good in the past, but probably they're not in line with the times.
Brendan, you mentioned spectrum. Is there any other thing that needs to be done in your opinion?
Yeah, stay out of the way. I mean, and I don't mean that facetiously. This industry has demonstrated that when you put in place rules that are predictable, investment will pour. It won't just come into this industry, it literally will pour into this industry. And I don't know what the annual CapEx is represented by the companies up here. It's got to be bordering on $100 billion a year. And so my challenge to the regulators, industrial policy is the right way to think about this. I like the way you've articulated that. Is, what are your objectives? Are your objectives to drive more investment into here? Then put in place the playing rules, make them predictable, and then move out of the way and let everybody compete, because we have a very competitive environment, and I think every area we're represented up here. And I think competition is the driving mode. Investment is what's going to be required to make this flourish. And so a regulatory environment should be one that is light touch.
It reminds me of a very famous speech given by Ronald Reagan back in the 60s. When Ronald Reagan said, talking about the potential for interfering and the negative potential for interfering in the life of a company, he said, if it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. When instead, subsidize it. That is certainly not the case of our industry, I think. Well, turning to Latin America, Daniel, I think that in Latin America, governments have levied very heavy taxation on the mobile industry, thinking that mobile services were the domain of rich people. Are they turning now their attitude to consider the impact that mobile telephony has done in terms of social inclusion?
I think regulators in Latin America are already understanding that data is so important in the region that they are thinking, they are trying to give us more spectrum. They are trying to be a little bit more light in the regulations. They want to have more clear regulations because what Randall is saying, they need investments. All these countries need a lot of investments, and if they want the investments, they need to be more clear to look to the future, not to look what used to happen 10 years ago. So that's something that in Latin America is happening. I think regulators have learning more, understanding more the business, and I hope that they are going to be giving us more clear rules to have the investments in the countries.
Thank you, Daniel. Cesar, do you think that also European regulators are understanding better the business?
Well, I would like to say one thing about regulators. I still don't understand why we are regulated. So, I've been for 11 years in Telefónica. I don't understand why we are regulated. And one thing which is very important, I think what Victoria was saying, which is the doctor, at the end, what we need is competition and openness. Competition and openness, and we will do the rest. It's very difficult to understand a sector which is the most fast evolving in the world. I mean, nobody knew, any regulator knew 4 years ago it was going to be social networks. I remember when we start talking about DSL, they're talking about voice, we start talking about this, we're talking about DSL. So, I mean, they are always behind the wave, and it's normal because this is the most innovative sector. So the only thing we need is industrial policy, competition, and openness. And at least the minimum we need is symmetry. This is the minimum we would like, the symmetry. But what we need is what has been said by my colleagues.
Chairman Wang, you mentioned in your presentation that lack of innovation will turn our companies into dumb pipes. Are you optimistic about this, or are you pessimistic?
It's a very big challenge. In terms of ecosystem, and the first thing, as an operator, we could not do all things because mobile internet is different from voice and the text. It covered different industries. So as a telecom operator, we could not do all of things. We should open to all different providers. Second, we don't like to be the dumb pipes. If we do that, we will lose the opportunity to make money from the value-added service. So we think we will also provide pipes to all different players, but we also should be involved in it. For example, we will set up some platform. China Mobile now setting up a mobile market. It is operators app store, and it serves our people. But we don't do contents by ourselves. We give the opportunity to content providers. And for that, we think it will be a win-win situation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think we've made it sharp on time. I want to thank everybody, thank Randall Stevenson, Vittorio Colau, Chairman One, Daniel Hash, Cesar Alierta, and I invite everybody to be grateful to these great leaders of the